The Mace Solon Community School District. It is the mission of the Solon Community School District to engage each and every student in rigorous and relevant learning experiences, maximizing achievement through exceptional teaching. Chris, can you call the roll?
I can for the public hearing.
Oh, we do have a public hearing.
We do.
Yes. Let's call the roll for the public hearing.
Yep, Wolf. Here. Rockholz. Here. Coons.
Here.
Alaska.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Our student member is at practice, so will not be attending tonight.
Okay, so we have the fun and excitement of, this is the public hearing for the FY22 budget amendment as published in the newspaper.
Yep.
Is there anyone here to speak to the budget amendment for fiscal year 22? Okay. We now have 5 minutes in the holding pattern while we wait for the public hearing to reach its end and we can start the regular meeting.
And they're planning to leave it open until the
And
action
then we'll
item?
leave- then we'll
Okay.
leave it open on the action item,
Perfect.
in case anybody shows up and wants to speak.
Perfect.
So I apologize to everyone who came and thought we'd be efficient, but when we have a public hearing, we used to many years ago, Chris will remember this, we used to schedule the public hearing for the exact same time as the school board meeting. And people thought that that meant we didn't want public comment, so we put a delay in there. We still don't get anybody that shows up, but now we wait for 5 minutes to start the meeting and make you guys all sit out there and wait with us. But because of that, we can't start the public meeting until 5:35 when it's published.
2 more minutes.
You know what we should do is we just should start the public hearing 5 minutes earlier.
Yeah.
Start at 5:25 in the future and then just get here 5 minutes early and start the public hearing. And then meeting at 5:30. Remember that for next time, Chris. No, we will wait until we'll close that hearing right before the agenda. Just in case somebody does want to come and talk about it. So. For those of you who care, we have to, if we change the published budget, we have to put it in the paper and then make public comment. It doesn't change the amount of money we're spending, it just changes the categories we're spending in, so that at the end of the year, when we get to June, we close out the budget year, the numbers align. So if we prioritize things like when we have to deal with the fact that we've got an air conditioning and air handling system at the elementary school that needs to get replaced, and we have to shuffle around how we plan to spend it. This allows us to move money between categories. School finance is complicated and has silos, which have different budgets and different authorities, and so we have to publish within those categories. So that's what we're doing here. And as I tried to fill, we're all the way to 5:34, which means we've only got 1 more minute left, and I don't know if there's anything else I can say on the budget amendment. Davis, anything you want to say?
No, you said it well.
Okay. Pat does a very good job. She's our chief financial officer. She makes sure that everything lines up, and every spring she comes and gets this fixed for us, and that way when our audit gets done, I think we did a good job of planning ahead, and it's really Pat does a good job of planning ahead and a good job of correcting it when we spend in different categories as the year goes on. If you can figure out a way to keep surprises from coming up during the year that require us to move money around, that would be ideal, but so far we haven't figured that out.
I got $35
Good, we're ready.
Okay, I'm gonna bang the gavel again. Now I'm actually calling to order the public, or the regular school board meeting, the last public hearing. Chris, do you want to call the roll?
Wolf. Here. Rockholz. Here. Coons.
Here.
Alaska.
Here.
Brown.
Here,
Student member Wilson is still absent.
still at practice.
Still at practice.
Okay, welcome to the visitors and representatives of the press. Thank you for coming here tonight. This is our period for public comment. Do we have people that are speaking in public comment at the beginning of the meeting?
We do. We have some people that would like to speak on scheduling. And we have that on the information item that they'd like to speak ahead of time. So if you would like to come up, and they have, my understanding is information from the third
Individual.
individual.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks for allowing us to speak. My name is Dan Beltmeyer. I'm pastor at Jordan Creek Church. This is
Father Charles Clayton, pastor of St. Mary Catholic.
And Father Charles actually reached out to me and also Reverend Ken Ferguson over at United Methodist. And we have just been hearing feedback from our congregations, from families in our places about just the high stress levels that kids have been facing and feeling. And I think it's always unfair to pin things like stress and anxiety on one thing. But one feedback we were consistently getting was about scheduling, about the intensity of scheduling and the feeling that there was very little family time. So we wanted to come because we think you guys are doing a great job. The feedback I hear from people moving to the area, as someone who's moved here in the last 2 years, is that the schools are one of the big reasons they moved there. And so I'm sure you guys get all the flack, but we also want to say thank you because you guys are doing a good job. But one of the values that you guys have, one of your big goals is social and emotional. And I think that is unfair to place solely on the schools. So I'm so thankful that you guys put that on your list and you're rolling together on this. But what I want to say is that I think when you're talking about the social and emotional well-being of kids, we're at our best when we do it together as a community. And so that's all parts. That's churches, that's families, that's great organizations like Scouts. There's so many different things that I think all work together to bring kids to a better rounded social and emotional choice. I think we know from a lot of studies the value of rest, the value also of being able to have connection, not always have the stress of competition. Well, that's great. There's a place for that. And I'm so glad that Solon values that and does that. I think there's a time to be home to have a movie night, or there's a time to be home and be able to go on a walk together as a family. And what we're hearing from our families and our faith communities is that those are being stretched. There's just so much going on right now that oftentimes they aren't even having those times for connection. I think there was a long-standing tradition in the past. I'm newer here, so I'm still learning this, but my understanding is there was a tradition that we would keep Wednesday nights and Sundays open. And I think it should be more than just faith communities. It should be for the betterment of the whole community coming together and doing different things, or giving families just time and space to do things. It should be for all organizations. And again, I think we should do this together, rowing together in the same direction for the betterment of the kids. That's what we're trying to do. So we just wanted to express our concern and also our willingness to join with you. And that we would hope that this is not seen as antagonistic, but instead we're rowing together, trying to do this with you guys. Reverend Ken couldn't be here today, so I wanted to read you his letter and then let Father Charles bring in the close. So this is from Reverend Ken Ferguson. Dear board members, I deeply appreciate your willingness and passion for serving the Solon community. I know you do so with a mindset for the future and the nurturing of the youth and the staff of Solon schools. The purpose of this letter is to express my concern for the future of the greater community. I'm unable to attend because of a prior commitment. I would, however, like to humbly share a few thoughts. The founders of our community thought it was wise and prudent to keep the faith traditions and the government separate to avoid the practice or appearance of favoritism. However, they also provided space and time to allow people a freedom of choice in how they lead their lives. It appears that the long-standing tradition in Solon of honoring Wednesdays and Sundays as times for people to meet with faith communities is changing. My concern for the community of Solon is for the parents and students who are already stretched and pulled in multiple directions. My concern has always been to find a place and a space for parents and students of all who speak freely a time to rest from the daily activities. My desire is to lower the stress levels of all people. As board members, I know you too desire to provide places and spaces for rest and renewal. In a full week of time, I do not see how asking you to continue to honor the Wednesday night and Sunday morning is asking too much from the community. I would hope and pray you consider the faith communities of Solon as you make the decisions you feel are the best for the full growth of Solon community now and in the future. May God bless you all. Shalom, Reverend Ken Ferguson.
And Reverend Ken is the pastor of the Methodist Church here in town. As pastors Dan Hobenmeyer and Ken and I value our ministry to the care of the faithful of the Solon community, our families are our bedrock here. And each of our faith communities respect and try to treat our families to help them become the best citizens based upon our beliefs to love God and our neighbors ourselves. Families truly need to give time for thanks, to play together, to be together, without having pressures to manage conflicting schedules, with school events pitting them against church events and activities. Sports are a great means to create teamwork, but as ministers of God, we need to be together on the same team with the school board, the school district, our school families, by being considerate of each other's time and events. Our families need to nurture their faith lives too. We're all proud to be part of the Solon community. And as Dan said, being new here, people come to live in Solon, and it is their will to better themselves and their children. We have a saying here that is the motto on the football stadium, where excellence is tradition. Please help us in keeping that excellence alive and growing and not lose the tradition. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
As Chris indicated, we've got this topic of discussion items later, so if you're not able to stick around to hear the discussion, I will be posted on the website when we get the audio and video up later. So if you're not able to stick around, you'll be able to listen to our conversation later in the evening. Thank you. Celebration. Celebration achievement.
Okay, so we do have some speakers
Yep.
from the high school.
We
for-
do.
I'm gonna call it the Laura Science Olympics. I'm not really sure if that's exactly what the title is, but we've got 4 students and a. science
This is our
teacher.
celebration.
Yep.
We
Celebration
want
of
to, we want to
achievements.
highlight them. Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Yeah.
I'll just kind of speak generically and then you could fire questions. If then you'd like to.
Oh,
Um,
we're good at that part.
Yes, I know. So
The end in particular.
a former student of mine, Zeb Gadida, graduated a couple years ago, is at Forest College, a biochemistry major. He reached out to, kind of tell me what he was up to and thanking me for making science fun. And that was followed up by his advisor, who they host a chemistry Olympics every year, which they haven't done the last couple of years. So they get back to it. Needed a couple teams to fill out their the competition. And so we fielded 2 teams. We took 2 teams of 5 and then some extra students that they kind of had the option to participate or not. And so everybody got to go up and had some individual events in the morning. They scored, and then some team events in the afternoon. And after a tiebreaker for first, this team took home the championship. So it was kind of cool because the Duke senior, I think, had won it 6 years. They're the only team that had ever won it. So we were the first team.
All right.
And our other team did well too. They placed in an individual event. And, so we had lots of successes. So feel free to ask for more details.
Dan, I'll let you go first. So tell me what are the individual events which you guys have to do as a team?
Our first events, so first we did like a mystery liquid ID or mystery ID or something like that. They gave us 12 liquids and you didn't know what was what. You had to like mix things together and add things to it to figure out which chemical was which. And then we had titrations, which is like mixing an acid and base to neutralize it and figure out the concentration of one of those. So that was like math and science. And then the third one was density. So they give you a mystery liquid and you have to figure out the density of it by doing like multiple trials. And those were our individual events. And then in the afternoon, we had, it was like what, game show style. So we played like there was Jeopardy, there was, it was like a vowel game. It was like all consonants and no vowels. You had to guess the word based on the consonants. Then there was like a blindfolded one. We would, they would hand you letters and we would put them in order. That were missing. Yeah, those were the afternoon events. And there's like a final Jeopardy if you won, but we didn't do it. If your Jeopardy team won.
Cassie?
What did you learn out of the event? What was the key takeaways that you had from this event?
You don't have to get first place in everything to end up winning the whole thing. I think we got 3rd or 4th in every single event. We ended up winning the whole thing. So it worked.
Do you think, I'm sorry, can I ask one?
You can.
Do you believe that this event helped you grow more in your knowledge around chemistry?
Is that what was like more fun, like, is that to your language, like, use your education, have fun at something? Like, benefit from it, if you learn, but you also have fun while doing it, so.
I also did some on the spot learning that day with some units that more college unit chemistry stuff, but I was a little worried about that might be on Jeffrey.
Brandon? Everybody's gonna be going, are you all seniors?
I would,
You're juniors? Thinking about studying chemistry?
I'm not going biology, so plus.
Maybe like science education weeks. Awesome. So Cassie asked me.
Oh,
my
sorry.
questions. Thanks. Thanks. And I was gonna ask if you guys had fun. Like, was this something that you would want to go do again? Yeah.
Yeah, Autumn, Claire, junior in that class. She's already said she's going to. Yeah, so next year. Depends, right?
Are there other kids you're gonna recruit to go with you next year, or from the other teams?
Well, so Brady Rusty, he's currently in normal chemistry, and I was talking with him a minute about doing Hvac chemistry next year and taking him to
Good.
Yeah, she asked my question then, but no, congratulations, and yeah, hopefully next year you can kind of lead the recruiting charge and build that team up.
So how are you going to recruit? So what's going to be your pitch to your fellow classmates to get them to go?
get a big trophy. Big trophy. I think the overall experience of just going to the deep to Loras College was really fun. It's like, it is a smaller college, but it was also just a good day away from everything else and just like hang out with the classmates.
Yeah, I do appreciate you being a senior. I have cousins who graduated from senior, so when we get together in the summer, I will make sure to point out that we beat them and throw them. So that will be helpful. I always appreciate that. See if you have any crowd that goes up next year with you. Are there other options beyond the Loras? What are there other ones you can do during the year, or is it just kind of, is Loras kind of the?
That's the only one I really, just being specific to science events. Kind of fit our.
Mhm.
And so which trophy case does this big trophy go? I was
I'm hoping it goes in the front table for school.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Well, I didn't tell them this, but yeah, it's a traveling trophy, so they're engraving, all their names, but they put the wrong year on it. Big printers, they did. I know, so they didn't take it back to the trophy shop.
So it has to go back next year. So you have to take it back next year.
Yeah, well, they did 2020, because that was the next year on there, but we had skipped 2 years, so.
So it has to go back with you next year.
We had to take it back.
Okay. Well, you guys, are you going to Loras to college to look and see the trophy when it comes by?
Zeb can take a picture of it, right, and send it.
So where you guys from college?
I'm going to Iowa State.
Iowa State?
I don't know yet.
Don't know yet? Very good, okay. Well, you've got time yet, and you've got plenty of time. So congratulations on all your hard work. It's always, we like to celebrate everybody who represents Solon. I'm glad you guys enjoyed your time up there, and hopefully you'll be back next year and we can learn more about how you do a repeat championship, and maybe some of those that are nearby can make a trip up there and cheer you on. Last thing, thank you. That's what all this knowledge is. And I think this is twice this year you've come to visit us. Okay, well, we don't normally get repeat visitors. Normally one time is enough, and they're like, I'm never going back there again. So, but thanks for coming back, and hopefully you enjoyed your year here in Solon.
Thanks.
And hopefully you enjoy Kirkwood next year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Next up is focus on learning.
Yep, so we have the middle school, we have Mary Angelica and Trevin Wilcox. They are here to share the middle school Washington DC trip experience.
So Chris just introduced us, but Mary Ann working at the middle school and Trevin, 8th grade, ready for high school next year. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank your board for allowing the trip and allowing the opportunity for our 8th grade students to travel to DC. This year we took 45 students and there were 5 chaperones. Our trip began at 2:30 in the morning on Wednesday, the 20th, and we began our trip by getting to the airport, and we were waiting for our next flight, and we ran into a group of servicemen and women. So I went over to them because I'm a camera person, picture person, and I said, can our kids please get a picture with you? And I think they appreciated it. Our kids were great in thanking them for serving, and that just started a wonderful 3-day trip. So some of the sites that we visited were World War I Memorial, Einstein Statue, Botanical Gardens, Arlington Cemetery, where we saw the changing of the guard, Iwo Jima Marine Memorial, Lincoln Memorial, Korean Memorial, Vietnam Memorial, Gettysburg National Park, Gettysburg Battlefield, White House, Washington Monument, World War II Memorial, Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial, Franklin D. Roosevelt Memorial, Jefferson Memorial, September 11th Pentagon Memorial, Mount Vernon, home of George Washington. I did have a student ask me if this was the Mount Vernon close to Solon, and I said, do you remember being in an airplane? Capitol Hill, Library of Congress, and the Smithsonian Complex. The whole trip was amazing. I love Washington, DC. I would never want to live there, but to go and to see the kids in awe, seeing our nation's capital and where things happen. One of the highlights of the trip was I got teary-eyed. We were at the Reagan National Airport, and we had the honor of cheering and clapping for an honor flight group. And I'm gonna probably cry talking about it because those veterans in wheelchairs without legs, they adored the kids. I'm so sorry. But it was a moment of a trip that I will never forget. All I can say is it was a wonderful trip. I appreciate you letting us go. The kids were awesome. When we were saw the the honor flight people, the veterans, the kids were just like not how 8th graders normally act, right? Okay. At this time, Trevin wants to answer any questions you might have. He's super nervous. So
Trevin, I heard your itinerary. Did you ever sleep?
Well, we usually got back to the hotel around 9:30, and me and my roommates were mostly in bed by 10:30, and we had a alarm set for 5:45, which Mr. Husek had set for all of our rooms. And I guess when you're excited to go see all the events, the tiredness doesn't really bother you. And we did have some amounts of time on the bus before the trips in the morning, so kids who worked out were able to sleep.
Yeah, I've been there before, so some of that stuff. And the distance, right? It looks like, oh, it's over there. And so it's a lot of walking. But
Yeah.
it's great that you guys got to see all that. And thank you for, again, taking them and organizing this trip. I know my daughter's already talking about making the trip next year. So it's great.
Cassie, Jamie?
Would you recommend it to the friends next year coming to Adam's daughter and others? It's these 45 kids, and about half of them missed out and more. I mean, kids, what was the 15 maybe, or
I don't know.
26, so
So, yeah.
like only a third of the class partaked in it. But that's a good group.
I would really recommend it. I think a lot of the reason why people did it is because they thought, oh, it's just like another social studies class. Like, it's not really gonna be fun, but all the events you got to see and all the places we gotta go. It was really, it was more than a learning experience. It was more like a vacation kind of, because when you're out there, it's not just like you're forced to do this. You sign up for it, you're having fun with your friends. You're not under the pressure of your family members, and along with the teachers and stuff, it was just carefree and just a great thing to see.
Different experience with
Yeah.
your friends versus with your mom and dad. I want to ask a question. So what was your very favorite part of that whole trip?
I think it's the Smithsonian, because it had all the, it was not a museum, but it was more than that. One of my favorite parts was it, but there was their insect exhibit, and instead of, just showing pictures of it, there was actual insects in tanks, and there was this, one thing I remember was their butterfly nursery, and you got to see the butterflies, coming out of their cocoons and flying around there. I thought that was just really cool. And I forget what the diamond was called, but it was like another diamond in it.
Hope Diamond?
Yes, we got to see the Hope Diamond. I thought that was really cool. Though I really wanted to see the Botanical Gardens, but I was on a layover flight, so yeah, I missed that.
Yeah, we did have to take 2 different flights, unfortunately, but we all ended up in the same place.
Did you, we got alerted, so did you guys, were you under the impression, like when the flight that, I think, what was it, somebody was coming in for a baseball game and they
Yeah.
flew over? Does that affect you guys at all, or was it?
So we were at dinner the first night, and one of our chaperones got a text from somebody back here saying, the Capitol, they're evacuating the Capitol. So my first comment was, we gotta call Mike, because parents are gonna be calling Mike, parents are gonna be calling you people, So we, of course, the first thing we went to was our World Strides director that was with us, and he said, my people, my above people would let us know if we were in danger. We, like you said, the Capitol looks like it's right there, but it's a long ways away. We were nowhere near the Capitol, but we still alerted Mike and just said, hey, just FYI, we're afraid that the kids are gonna hear from their parents, which we did have one parent reach out to the child that was with us. We assured that child that we were safe. But that's what we were worried about. We were worried that it's gonna spread, the kids are gonna be worried, they're away from their parents, da, 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 da. So it ended up fine, obviously, but yeah, they're apparently, I don't know all the details, but they were, I don't know, they were parachuting out of something and landing in the garden or the lawn of the Capitol.
I think there was,
And there was a communication problem where the people in the Capitol didn't know this was gonna happen, but
I think it was the face, I think they were trying to drop in at
Nationals game.
the Nationals game,
yeah.
which
It's
is,
funny how fast time.
which is
They
only,
hit the drop zone.
Communication moves, right? You
Yeah.
sit there, and,
well, it's,
Right.
Nationals ballpark is only a mile
Mm.
from the Capitol. Because I stay at a hotel there, I can walk up to the Capitol from there, and it's 2 blocks from the ball field. So.
It was handleable, everybody.
Yeah, and I just, poor Mike, I just called him and I'm like, this is what's happening and we think you should call or email parents, but obviously you're the administrator, you do what you need to do, but we were worried that parents were gonna contact the kids and then we have a mess. Only one parent did and it was fine.
So was most of your transportation busing every day, or did you guys walk from your hotel? Were you guys in Virginia for your hotel, or were you guys in DC proper? Maryland?
Yeah. So yeah, to answer your question, we were charter busing everywhere. We did a ton of walking, of course, from Arlington Cemetery. And we did have a student, we had a mishap at the cemetery. She was walking up some steps and she missed a step, ended up having to go to the emergency room just to get things checked out. No broken bones, no nothing like that, but she was in a wheelchair just for comfort the rest of the trip, but Mr. Cusick got to see an ER in DC.
Arlington Cemetery is a hike around there. That's-
Yes, yes.
And so. It is, so how many of those facilities you go to? So it sounds like you went to natural history. What did you do? Aerospace Museum? or-
That was not open. Part of it wasn't open. We saw the 2 history ones.
And you and I was there last year, they were talking about renovations to it. And part of it was closed down when I was there last time. And so
I think it was a fun trip. It was way better with my friends though, because I did not feel pressure, but I think if my mom gave me a chance, I would go again.
We did a great job explaining that. It wasn't that scary.
That was gonna be my
I
question.
would love to. We'll see. I would love to.
You're always invited.
Thank you. Thank you.
You heard it, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a wonderful 28 years. You know, every day I was telling Jamie yesterday when she was delivering coffee, you have good and bad days, you know, everywhere you go and whatever job you have, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I wouldn't have stayed 28 years if I didn't like it. So.
What are you gonna do next year, Mike?
Thank you for letting us
Thank
speak.
you.
Thank
Great
you.
job.
Next up is the admin report. Changes to the high school, middle school course offerings.
I'll let Zach and Mike kind of talk about some changes that we're making with the addition of a full-time industrial tech teacher.
Yeah, so essentially, we were able to increase the number of sections that we're gonna have for the 2 classes that we have at the high school. So we're gonna go from 6 to 8. And that's gonna fulfill every request that we got. So every kid that wanted to take one of those courses is gonna be able to. Now, how that plays out in the master schedule is yet to be determined, but we're gonna have that done by the end of the week, next week, or actually by Wednesday. So we'll know for sure, but historically, we've had Spanish as part of our exploratory at the middle school, but we're going to transition that to industrial technology. And so our new full-time instructor will fulfill one of those rotations at the middle school. And then we're going to actually have Martine full-time at the high school because we have over 400 requests for Spanish classes. And so that's going to allow us to keep the numbers down in our 4 different levels of Spanish and our paper Spanish class as well. So, and it'll expose our middle school students to some things that they haven't been exposed to for a while, I don't know how long or ever. Yeah, one time. So I don't know, Mike, what else I missed?
Probably from our end, the biggest difference between the middle school setup and the high school setup is we're talking exploratories where we expose all kids to content and Zach's talking electives with this top Spanish isn't like around it. And we're looking for a little dab of exposure in a lot of different areas. So we like to ensure that the work that we do is exposing kids to things, not only in high school, but beyond. That's the industrial tech part, SCS as well. Unfortunately, we can't do it all. So we look at what we do. We miss Spanish to some degree, but essentially, yeah.
So just you're switching out middle school Spanish for industrial tech. And then what did you say about what's going on in high school for Spanish then?
So instead of Martine being shared between 2 buildings, so historically he's been 3/4 of the day at the middle school one semester and then vice versa the other semester. Now he'll be full time.
So there'll be no middle school offering Spanish.
Correct. As an exploratory, as part of this rotation. What else?
So, and I'm just making sure that like everybody's 6 to 8 will be exposed.
So the foreign language that gathering, as we continue to grow. Talked about in the past, and that was the last time we talked about maybe before the pandemic. We've talked about, you know, there's some opportunities for like Des Moines is offering like Mandarin online. And we talked about trying to make students are interested in a language other than Spanish. As a small district, you kind of got to pick you pick a foreign language, and you're not like a big district that goes, we're going to offer French, German, Spanish, and Mandarin. You kind of pick and you go.
We have that option through Admentum. We also have it through Apex, but for Hvac, it's a lot more challenging just because we don't have an actual certified teacher in that area. Yes, we can have somebody facilitate it, but it probably isn't as purposeful. And the other option that we had in the past is students have taken concurrent classes through Iowa and in other foreign languages, which it's a pretty, I think, intense entrance process for those. And then sign language has been one that they've taken as well, but Adventure would probably be the best option. We just haven't crossed that bridge yet, I guess, just because we really use that strictly for our students that were 100%. Yeah.
I was just thinking,
Not that we couldn't.
no, I'm trying to think about the future as we, because we get a more diverse student population and we're trying to manage this. Is there a way to balance it out?
And I think to Mike's point, like, so many of our students feel like they have to take it so they can get the 4 years done. So just allowing kids to see that isn't what everybody has to do. You don't have to have, you don't have to have. It's okay. If it's something that you're going to do is go to 4 year school, you don't want to take foreign language. Then great, but that's just continuing to navigate that. So
I think it's good to have, obviously it's good to keep those class sizes reasonable so we can manage them. I think it's also useful as we start thinking about as we continue to grow, how do we let people know that there are options if they want to American Sign Language. And I think you're right, most kids and students just think, okay, everybody does Spanish because that's what we offer at house, but how do we make sure they're aware that, if you really are interested in German or French or Mandarin or American Sign Language, there are other options available to you. So maybe there's a summer offering or an online option for exposure to these things we can make available to middle school students when they can. I'll let you guys figure that out, but I still remember my 7th grade where we had a quarter where we learned one of our rotations was French, German, Spanish, and Latin. They still have Latin at that time. We had to pick a language.
You're much older than me.
Well, with that having been said, we're going to move on. You may, as long as you're not going to call me old.
Okay, FCS. What did you say about that?
But just one of those things that you took away the elements of that we would like to have.
Is that getting over into the industrial tech course or just
Hanging out there is a frequent discussion. Yeah.
SCS continues to be brought up through SIAD. It's been brought up.
And we've discussed, I mean, they just, yep, we do. I mean, as far as the availability of teachers in that area, single digits come out of colleges. And so there are alternative routes that we've discussed through our nutrition program. There are some things that we're doing with the BOEE to prep for that, to where we'll be able to open that door on an alternative way other than the traditional hiring someone with that college degree, that 4-year teaching college degree. There are other avenues that we can hire, as we did with Keith Deuster, someone who didn't have a teaching degree but had 2,500 plus hours in that specific field. So those are the routes that we're going through, looking at. It probably won't be ready to go first semester, but we are looking at opening that door here back to Solon. And like we did with Keith, when we opened back that ACES program, the woods and things like that, we started with just a few sections, built the interest, and every year we, as we saw sign up, we found ways to expand that. So, yeah.
And Cassie, just to clarify, I'm not at all advocating bringing back what we do as home ec, that type of things. Davis mentioned nutrition, but the life skills help and help.
One of the first steps that we took, one of many steps, is we actually, there's an additional FTE within the nutrition department now. That this person will be going into what, K5 or K8 classrooms?
Maybe all the way to
K8 classrooms on a monthly rotation, doing foods and nutrition type of lessons, exposing kids to fruits or vegetables they may not be familiar with or may not have ever tasted, and trying different recipes. So that is part of the description of this person, which this person then eventually, once we get this established and better trained and the details kind of worked out, then we hope to free up our director more to maybe be available to the high school for courses. So that's the long-term game plan as far as fulfilling some of that foods and nutrition and some of those things that our kids are interested in.
And then originally, there was a financial component. Long time ago, SCS, I think we did checks. But some of that's all been transitioned into, right, to the financial stuff. So, I mean, some of these pieces have plopped into other spots. But obviously, some of the stuff, you know, just your activities of learning how to be an adult are things that obviously is, you know, I won't mention any names. You might have won a national championship. You didn't know I had to do laundry before I went to college, so. But no, I mean, I think those things are valuable and trying to figure out how we can do that with a limited number of teachers.
And I tell you, I mean, we've got a director that's done a great job and really understands. I mean, we talked about when there are some districts that are raising their, I mean, of course, now the free lunches is going away. And, you know, the timing for that is not necessarily the greatest, with gas prices being at a 40-year high and still climbing and things like that. So our director said, no, we're not going to raise. I mean, she advocated, we're not going to raise prices for breakfast, lunch. And if we have to, we'll just do more scratch cooking, which will save money in the long run. So she's prepped to do more scratch cooking, and she's very gifted and talented at that. And so in the future, if we use her with students in coursework, I think that'll be a good thing. Yeah.
I did see most of President Des Moines last weekend, and there's on the news, most of the districts in around the Des Moines area are raising meals 25 cents a meal. So. It's a 10% increase.
One more thing, if there aren't any questions, one more thing before we move on, that I wanted Josh to mention with the admin report is through our teacher leadership system, our TLS system, our mentoring program that we every year we reflect, revise, and Josh has some data or information.
Just celebrating with Edmonton this week, just the work being done with our brand new first year teachers and professional partners, and just the great relationships that they had this year. There was some.
So just to give you background, every new teacher that comes in, Josh and the principals pick out what they feel is a very good fit with a veteran teacher that we have in our system, and assigns him as a professional partner. That's when he says professional partner, we purposely hook up a veteran and a brand new teacher.
We just met with as a celebration at the end of the year with the first year teachers and their mentors, professional partners, sorry. Just to celebrate the end of the year, that had some great successes. We've all the way along the year, we think we met 5 or 6 times just as a whole group, just to kind of share out some of their experiences and talking about some of the successes, also some of the challenges. We used a curriculum this year that's published through Corwin, where it basically walks through month by month topics that the mentor and mentee can talk about, and kind of guides that discussion, and without making it too formal or overburdensome, I think sometimes induction programs, it becomes almost overburdensome for first-year teachers and mentors because it's meeting after meeting after meeting, and then there's all this learning, and then you have to take days off, and then you're really trying to focus on just that building a solid relationship between mentors and mentees, where they're meeting fairly consistently during planning time or after school, to talk about topics that are of interest to both of them and to help support those first-year teachers, especially in this day and age. It's becoming more and more challenging. With just all the responsibilities and sometimes the behaviors and dealing with sometimes critical parents. Those are just some of the topics we talk about, but then also just classroom management. How do you manage a building? What do you do with curriculum? But I really want to celebrate the fact that all of our first-year teachers are coming back next year, which I don't think every district can say. I think it was really due to the success of those partnerships and relationships between the professional partner and the first-year teachers. And I'm just really excited for all of them. They made it through their first year and ready to go into their second year too.
Trying to break off the rest, because my wife taught in the district for first school. It seemed like it was different after that versus for every teachers. Is that still the same, or is it?
Right, so I think we used to have a professional partner for every new teacher who came to the district. And I think some of the feedback in my first couple of years was it wasn't as valuable to have a professional partner for every single teacher. Because we had veteran teachers who they were doing it was more of a forced effort in those relationships, I think, at times, and there were some challenges with that. So instead, really trying to use our teacher leadership system as a whole, where we have a professional partners just dedicated to our first-year teachers, and then our grade level teams, our PLC facilitators, and especially our instructional coaches having a significant role in supporting all new teachers to the district and getting into those classrooms on a regular basis, especially within the first 30 to 45 days of the school year, to help them get acclimated to the curriculum, the instruction, some of the culture, climate, things that those all teachers, new teachers to the district face. So I think that was a change of significant change, but I think we just feel really good where we are right now with support that we're providing, especially our first-year teachers. There are some really talented teachers that I think are going to go a long ways for us in the district. Very proud of them.
Given what you just said right there, is there any takeaway from the veteran teachers in this experience as well?
I haven't had a chance to talk with those veteran teachers who are with us. So.
It'd be interesting data though. It's a good question. Yeah.
Davis, anything else in your admin report?
No. Just wrapping up, speaking of, I'll just say tomorrow, Holly has a personal day she's taking, and so she's got a team of teachers from the elementary that they'll be interviewing 4 candidates. We hope to get another interventionist, reading recovery teacher, and a first grade teacher out of those 4 applications that she's interviewing. And then that wraps up our positions, doesn't it, Josh? I can't think of that. That wraps it up. So we were really fortunate. We were very limited. I know the Hvac did a survey, the SUPs, and as far as what they were losing this year. And I mean, there were districts, and we're all pretty similar in size. There were districts that were up there hovering around 18, 19 staff that they were losing. So I think we were 5, 6 staff, 2 to retirement, 2 left the profession.
Closer to our average, 10 to 11.
10 to 11, okay.
Every year, average.
Yeah.
It's about 10. We're right in it.
Next up is board committee updates. Jamie, that's you and I, we were supposed to meet with Brian and get a report on summer projects report on, and I didn't do it. And I'm assuming.
I did a walk around with Brian.
Oh, you can give the. our
Well,
update on what the summer projects are.
I didn't take notes like Jamie. I know we've got, the HVAC project at yeah, and we just had a meeting, the other day. They're actually, we gave them permission to start May 29th, that Tuesday following Memorial Day, but they're actually going to wait until they get confirmation that all the equipment that's going to go in is on its way, because they said they only need about a week ahead of time to do the construction piece, or, prep for then. So that way it's not strung out all summer long. So that's the big project, that HVAC unit that will do all of the library area and those classrooms coming off the library. That's where we were.
Windows this summer.
Windows on the north side of the high school. Yep. Again, some of that might stretch into the fall because of supply. So, yeah. Just go ahead.
I was just saying, could you just ask Brian to send this to us?
I'll have him send you the list.
You want to email the whole board with the list, because normally Jamie and I would have met with him, but.
Outside of the HVAC, it's pretty typical. Gonna add concrete to that, more path between SIS and Lakeview.
Yep.
We've been doing about 10 to 15,000 every year, whatever that gets us. That might come close to completing it. Other than that, it's pretty routine. I'll send you the list.
The other three, why not? Why not do anything?
We have wellness.
Okay.
And so it's big. And so we met with, we talked about nutrition already. One of the things mental health is pretty big. PE requirements. One of the things I think we need to be never really include health. There are wellness and mental health things that we're at the day and we do a lot of this. So I think we, that's part of our continued need to and the other thing that becomes more difficult is just like the volume of the services we need to provide, and then the bodies we need to provide it, and how we do that. It's one of the first opportunities that a lot of let's just talk about it, right? With all these tiers, right? So we have our counselors with tier 1 work, but they probably need to do more tier 2 and tier 3. Going forward into the basics, where maybe we can have kind of, you guys know, really expertise. If there's not a curriculum that kind of goes through as the basics, maybe that's health, however that's brought about, and then they're more available for crisis management and all those things. Because yes, while it's great, we have the desk and we have all this information. If they're trying to teach the information in the middle of their teaching, they have crisis needs. And so looking at what options you have with those and the challenges, another counselor, another health position, if you just teach a curriculum, how does that work? I mean, there's just a lot of things to figure out. This thing.
Jamie and I had a good conversation on maybe.
Yeah, just kind of, our counselors are trying to do tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 in reading. We have classrooms, we have different people for different levels, and our counselors are trying to do all of it. There's only one in each, one in each school and one in 2 schools. So kind of using our counselors for what their talents are, rather than not saying that tier 1 isn't important. It's very important, but what our counselors are trained for and what their passion is the tier 2, tier 3 kind of stuff. So how can we free up that tier 1, and kind of a continuing discussion on how we can use our assets for, use our counselors for what they're here for, and find a way to have tier 1 brought to the kids by
through other means, so that the tier 2 and tier 3, which are more critical, time sensitive, the counselors are available for that when it's needed.
Or I'm gonna hope in, because he's here, we also talked about, getting the whole community involved. And, how do we do that? How do we present something that things that come to, that we can have things about mental health and just partnering with everybody who's here in town. As you know, you can't do it alone, like, in the spiritual aspect, you can't do it alone, because, also, getting our providers in the area, and just, if we can, the heartburn is, if the families have time to come, or have, all those sort of things, but that's other discussions we have and reach out, so.
It's good. Here's the only thing that we've got from the leadership standpoint is we're continuing to have meetings with the teachers union on the salary compensation. We've got one more meeting left this year, which is
Wednesday.
And then we'll see where we're at. We've had all discussions. And go a long way in kind of, seeing challenges are. Six part outcomes of the questions, do getting a resolution to how to tweak or change our sort of current salary schedule to better meet the needs that everyone's agreed upon. And I'm not sure that we're going to get there this year. We might have to pick it back up in the fall.
How would that be decided? I mean, like, it's good as a, how we make the decision?
So the idea would be, so the whole idea before we went into this is we went through mediation with PERB. So they're kind of leading us through, mediation is not the right word, but they're PERB is leading us through a joint process where there's representatives of the board, the administration there, and representatives of the teachers union. And we're kind of talking through priorities, and we spent a lot of time on that. And now we've finally gotten to the point where we're looking at what some options are. But I think we've gotten to that very late in the process, and I just don't see how we can come to any resolution in one meeting, with one meeting left. And so, but what happened at the end is one of the criteria is it has to be ratifiable, which means that we have to believe that the rest of the board would be supportive of the change, and the teachers union has to believe that their membership would be supportive of the change. And so we would bring back any kind of proposal back to the board, saying this is what we want to shift it. They would take it at the same time back to their membership, and then if that was everyone was on board, it would get implemented in the next, not this year's, not next year's salary, but the following year. So we still got time.
Vote on, or is it something you just do? That's the process.
The goal, as Tim described, the goal through this process is to get to that. But ultimately, it's the district's decision. It's the district's decision.
The board ultimately would have to vote on it. Okay, but again, under the current bargaining law, the board could unilaterally implement a change. We didn't want to go down that path. We had the conversation. I think where we're at right now is we all agree kind of what the priorities are, and then just the question is, can we come to some resolution on how to resolve the deficiencies with this current salary schedule?
So just so we could have just made this decision in the vacuum had we wanted. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, when we decided to get the teachers involved.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. I was just making sure I wasn't sure.
And one thing, Susan from PERB, who made clear, I mean, the goal through the discussion is coming, having everyone agree to shared interests, which we easily came to some shared interests, and then ultimately agree to the facts so that we can all, so we aren't arguing what the facts are, that we can all agree to. And we've looked at a lot of things, discussed ours, others, and just come to putting out on the table so that we have a set of facts and we have shared interests that we all agree to. Now it's discussion, and it was mentioned by a few at the table. I mean, we have representation from labor management, but we don't have good representation from the 114 teachers. So that will be rolling into next year, bringing in more of diverse group across our district to really now go through it and look at it. And,
You had that last year. Yeah.
and that's what we talked about, putting back together and expanding, maybe even doubling its size to have these conversations and to present some of this stuff that we've come to this year. Yeah.
Consent agenda. Anything that anyone wants to pull out of the consent agenda? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Coons,
Second.
second by Wolf to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. First action item. First action item is the approval of FY 22 budget amendment. Anybody now want to provide public comment on the FY 22 budget amendment? Seeing nobody, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Motion by Coons to close the public hearing at 6:31, second by Rojas. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Let me look at this real quick. We covered this last month. I'm not sure there's anything to say.
The same attachment.
It's the same attachment. I'm trying to figure out if there's magic words.
I was given,
I'm going to check this. If there's magic words. No, the only magic words are to prove as published.
I'll make a motion to approve fiscal year 2022 budget. That's proposed
Published.
as published. There you go.
Motion by Hvac.
Second.
Second by Wolf. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Cooking with butter here, guys. We're on to the pre-bond referendum services by the ISG. There was some questions on that last month. We've got some additional details. That is attached. So I think the question becomes, what of any of this do we want to work with? Yeah, so they divided, so originally they came out and they sent us a budget proposal of $30,000 as kind of cap on what they wanted. They've broken it down into 4 major pieces. One of which is related to community meetings, which would be kind of helping with some focus groups, meetings with the public. The next is community survey, which would be questions sent out, which help us gauge support for various aspects of what we wanted to do as part of the bonding referendum. And going through that process with us. Last portion, the next portion is a referendum support, which is kind of
Strategizing.
strategizing for how we get the bond referendum passed.
Is this coordinated?
So
That'd be included.
bonding that would be included. So we're going to the facilities task force. And when we finish that up in the fall, the idea would be we'd have a series of projects we want in the short and near term that would be funded under our capacity for bonding. And so we would take that out to the public. They would be helping us. That would be covering just that referendum support would be how do we strategize for getting the referendum bonding passed. So basically,
Getting the information out, getting communication out, having those surveys, surveying the community, analyzing that survey. Oh, that's different. Yeah.
And then the master planning one is basically a review of what we've got and what the needs are and future growth. If Jamie and I have talked about this, we think that we do not need the master planning piece. And I don't think, and I think Jamie agrees, we don't need the community meetings piece for what they're proposing to do. I think that's one I can. Our original plan was just that Jamie and I and Davis and Brian were going to handle that piece, and I think that we can continue to handle that piece because we're going to have more than 3 meetings, and I don't want to pay $2,500 a meeting, quite frankly. So that leaves
Survey sounds a little expensive.
it does, but it's also something we don't have the in-house skills to do. So yeah.
Community survey, that one I think would benefit us because they're gonna have a little bit
little bit of insight on the correct questions to ask, and they will create the survey and put it out to the community. That's where we see some value in the community survey. The reference support, I'm kind of up in the air about, the master planning. And community side of things.
So I think Jamie and I are in the same boat, which is like community surveys, one, I think there's value in, because I think the community has grown a lot, you know, and I think being able to make sure we correctly target what we want to do and align it with where the community's at. Since the last time we went to bonding, you know, unfortunately, as we get larger, it's harder for 5 of us to have a good feel for where the community's at.
Well, I think through communication, right, that's a big thing. Yeah, that's a way to, for everybody to get it.
Well, I think that's the other piece of it is, you know, that's one of the things they point out is the community survey is also your first opportunity to introduce everybody to what you're thinking about doing. And so getting that right so that they kind of have an idea of what the, so it's almost, I hate to say, you know, in addition to getting valuable information back, it's also part of that is pushing information out about what the needs are that the district's facing and why we're doing this, so we can gather inputs about priorities and whatnot. So I think getting the survey right.
Well, I know in the past, we've sent out surveys and like the questions, if you don't word them just right, you don't get the information that you want.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not a good question writer. Yeah, right. And so, you know, you understand.
I can write a question to get any answer I want.
But yeah, well, and then, you know, it became, completely off. Yeah, is what we got feedback on. So, just, I mean, and I don't mean if you're good at writing questions, you want to write, you know what I mean? I'm okay, whatever, but I'm just saying, I think writing the right questions to get the information that we need is important. Whoever-
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. So,
Oh, I agree.
was a little much, like, because
Right.
I have experience with that too. Not saying they should do it. but-
Yes, okay. Yours more than financial.
So if we did this, we split it up according to your recommendations.
For me, I just spent the 5,000 in the survey and be done.
Okay.
That's what I
Would be down with that.
that's what I'd be down to.
Because I would contend that maybe they're, I mean, they're supporting meetings, creation of PowerPoints and that kind of thing. Maybe not something free, but
Maybe not 3, but just the marketing aspect too. You know, working with Piper's Sandler to prepare presentations and get that data that we need and market the brochures and some of that work that we really don't have in-house, that marketing.
What is your sense of the support of adding on to the food?
I've heard nothing but positive.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
That's part of my thing
Expected.
too. I mean, I don't want to be naive. And
That's one thing they said about the survey, Dan, though, too, is what they, and the lady that we sat down with, gentleman, the lady, this is kind of her wheelhouse. She's done like 400 of these. She said the survey results will help basically tell you where your putt's lined up.
Right.
Is it going to be a long Tiger Woods putt, or is it going to be kind of a chip in putt? You will have a good, as far as where a community's thinking, as far as, yeah, I can support that.
But that would be, if we create the questions and we get all positive feedback, right, we just spend a bunch of money on community meetings.
Well, the community meetings are on the front end of that, not on the back end of that. So that's still, because that's as we're going through our as we gather information, that's part of the facilities task force process. And so that would be on that front end of that, not after the survey. So as you think about this process, we're still in the middle of coming up with what we're going to propose to the community. We've got to do that before we send the survey. So the process lines up with identifying what the needs are that we're going to bond for. And so, you know, as we look out 5 years, what is it we're going to have to spend money on? Is it renovations to Lakeview, the old Lakeview? Is it the 3rd grade edition? Is it the other edition at the high school? Or what is it we're going to need? And so we've had some of those preliminary conversations. We've got to finish that process and then prioritize what those needs are. And then from there, we go out and we as a board say, these are our priorities. This is what we think we want to push forward with in terms of needs. And once that's in place, then we make sure that's aligned with what the community thinks. And if it's not, we pull back. If we send a community survey out and they say, we're not supportive of these projects, it doesn't make sense to go to bonding if we've got 30% support for the project. So getting that lined up is kind of critical thing. You know, we spent a lot of time, Dan, when we did the middle school and the fine arts, so trying to find the right project that would get broad community support was a fair amount of effort in the background.
So question, just a general question. This sounds like an internal thing, like finding out what we want to do.
Yep.
I don't know if we need to help on deciding on what we want to do.
Well,
That's my personal opinion.
well, the meetings are, just from a context standpoint, we so far met internally.
Yeah.
We still have the external meetings, meeting with the boosters, meeting with.
For sure.
The spotlight, meeting with community members to figure out what they think the needs, what needs they see as we grow.
I guess my biggest question is this something that we can handle?
Which piece?
This piece you're talking about, finding out what all these communities need rather than paying for this. Sounds like this is easy. I mean, not easy, but
It's just
everybody's-
time consuming.
it is, that's the thing.
The community meetings, we've already, when we started the internal, and I think the community meetings are something that we can,
Do ourselves,
we
right?
can do. I don't think we
We
need,
have a plan for it.
yeah, I don't think we need handouts and PowerPoints and necessarily what, we don't need $2,500.
So we've got all the ones that we as a small group can handle. The next step would be the public meetings that the facilities task force would take the input we gather from the internal and from community members, and then they would work through the prioritization standpoint. So that's where it's going to be more public meeting, where we start talking about, these are all the needs that have been identified by staff, by administration, by parents, by Spotlight, by Booster Club. These are all the things that we could do, or we feel we have a need for. And so figuring out where those prioritize is where it gets dumped on the facilities task force that we usually appoint. And they would hash through that with a series of public meetings that where they would walk through it, and there would be opportunities for public input at those meetings. And so that's kind of what these are geared towards, is we have some folks coming in on that. We can handle a lot of the front end stuff. We talked about them being involved both on some of the broader meetings that we do with the Buildings and Grounds Committee and also on the other one. So they've kind of lumped it all together. I know my personal feeling is that there's not much value, I think, for the meetings that we're organizing to be involved. I could see something where maybe there's some presentations for one of the public meetings that the building or the facilities task force would handle, where that might be helpful. But I think we could handle most of that stuff ourselves, I would think.
Even have communities to date to help inform what is going forward, and you're going to survey the community. The result of that survey that would help inform maybe the
Well, we would go to bond.
broader community outreach and saying, here's our initial discovery work. Here's the survey, what the community said, here's our findings from both of those.
So-
Here's the
so from-
forward plan, is that?
So from a phase standpoint, we've got the Buildings and Grounds Committee work that's all kind of background work on the front end. Once that's done, we appoint facilities task force, which would take that information and begin processing and come with priorities about what we want to move forward. At that point in time, we push forward with community survey about how they feel about the things that we prioritize that we propose to go forward with. At a certain point, and Davis can correct me here, the next step would be to finalize on what we want to push forward based on that feedback. We would then have a petition for a bond, and then we can provide information about what we're proposing. But there's generally a Friends of the School that does a lot of the outreach there, because the school can't advocate, the district cannot advocate for the passage of the bond. We can only put out factual information. So once we finish our process, it really becomes a community effort to get the bond passed. And so a lot of the people who might be on the facilities task force might be people who are invested in that and who would help us push that forward. But once we get a petition for the bond, we have to step back, and we are only allowed to provide factual information, not advocacy. Correct?
Yeah.
So, and so we just have when we get to the point where we have a petition, we want to make sure that it's something that can pass. There's a reasonable chance to pass. So everything we do up until that point is to make sure that we have something that's supportable by the community. And the community survey is a piece of that that allows us to kind of make sure we can fine tune what we want to move forward with.
And why would we not want Mr. Taylor to be part of that equation?
Because they're proposing to do existing buildings, which we already know. Because we've gone through this process. The only building that needs a potential update is Lakeview, and we still have a long list of information from last time we paid them to do it, on what the needs there are. We've done a lot of background work looking at what the growth of the district is. So I don't really need them to go out and redo that work. We know where the developments are coming. We know what the growth is expected to be over the next 10 years. And the only piece of this is the layout plan for future growth of the existing facilities. And at Lakeview, there is no future growth. At CISP, we know there's a third grade wing that we've already got spec'd out. At the middle school, Mike knows where the two potential wings that could go off to the south are, and the potential east-west wing that could come off there if we ever needed that. Because we've already got that built in by the plans from ISG, so we know what that looks like. At the high school, the only place that's left is a potential wing to the north that would come on the other side of the courtyard. So I think we kind of know where
So we already have it.
we already have that information. Yeah, so we don't forget.
We don't need to spend $15,000. That's a higher level.
Yeah.
Pretty much already done it.
Yes, the only real piece of that potentially would be reassessing Lakeview to figure out what you can do down there. But we know what the struggles are. It's all on the old portion of it. It all needs. It's just it's not up to what the rest of the district has in terms of space. People educate. It's the oldest educational piece of the district we still have left. So. Jamie, do you want to post something? So we can at least then discuss what you're proposing and then we can move to a vote. from there.
Well, I guess I propose that we move forward with the community survey portion. Okay.
So we have a motion by Wolf to proceed with, agree with ISG for community survey of what they're proposing. I'll go to a second, and discussion, get a second. Second by Coons, discussion on proceeding with agreement with ISG to provide a community survey as part of our process.
Will be able to negotiate the price.
So my answer to that is, in return to Davis, I think the answer is they're proposing $5,000 for the survey. They're going to bill us for what it costs, but my guess is it's going to cost, with them it's going to cost $5,000.
My personal feel, if you got facilities, people feel like, I mean, it sounds like, I guess if community wants a grounds, going to have to do a survey or some sort of writing questions are important. I agree with I think we talked last time, so other people besides ISG who can do this. Because in my experience, people who already have relationships, they have to be aggressive, negotiate the prices, because people who don't have relationships, they want relationships. That being said, they already have the drawings, that will be a harder transition than I'm just saying.
And Davis, I don't know if you reached out to a couple other places and you have to work by.
Actually sat down with one company that been around for quite some time and they work with districts, but the conversation we had at the table is they enter into a marriage. So they not only do your survey, but they do your master planning, they do your architectural design, they do your contract managers, they bring in contract managers to oversee construction. It's all inclusive. And I asked about just breaking a piece off.
They're not interested.
They're not interested. It's, yeah, we want to partner and be married and we want a long-term relationship. Yeah. So that's what I'm running into as far as, yeah, yeah. Make,
I just paid a survey bill for $6,000, but I got guaranteed responses and then responses. That's where I'm.
I can certainly get on the phone tomorrow and talk about, you know, their process, their guarantee as far as what percent of the community, you know, are you going to guarantee? How are you going to do that? And is it just a set 5,000 or is it based upon the size of our district or, I mean, I can certainly.
Survey, there's all sorts of.
I know that's part of it. It's not, they take care, and then they present us the data from analyzing it and make recommendations and themes and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
it might be good to know what we're getting for our.
Okay.
So we only ended up with the first one. You're saying, yeah. You know, public drawings, different plans and stuff to push out through the community, we can get that done.
I think the thing to point out here is part of the survey that's different than kind of the ones that I traditionally probably, is there's an educational piece to the survey, not just here are the questions and here's why we're doing it. There's a fair amount of work that they're proposing to do that is providing context to the questions, as well as rather than just, you know, here's 20 questions and I want your answers to them based on what information have you had. This is providing informed responses rather than just responses. So
can you give me, so the motion is to
The current-
use
current-
the
current-
community survey
yeah, we approve. The current motion is to approve the community survey portion of the contract. Yeah. The motion is second on that. We're in discussion.
Okay.
Can we make that motion contingent upon the basis? You know, what would, I don't know if I'm putting this on or what. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Because you make a good point, I mean, if we get 1% feedback, reaching that community. Because there
And
were.
we can table it. and-
Better off table.
And then just come back to it, because the survey would not be until the fall.
Right.
And so it's not like it's time sensitive. If we're gonna do, if we're gonna have them involved in some of the communities that are gonna come up more urgently, then it becomes time sensitive. If we're gonna, since we're only doing that piece, you know, if holding off another month doesn't harm us. And so we could, you know, somebody could make a motion to table the consideration until next month, and then that would allow Davis to come back with additional answers. And so that would be our option if we wanted that. I'd rather table it for a month and then come back again, rather than, because it gets dicey. If we approve a motion contingent on something,
For
then
sure.
we've got to be, we have to be very clear on what we're doing, and it just gets messy.
I think you feel better, and I feel better to find out what this $5,000 action price is.
So can I put a motion made by Wolf, second by Coons to table?
I've heard no motion to table yet.
Oh, shoot, I was just making that up. then.
Yeah.
Motion to table, the community survey piece, of the approval until Davis can speak with them and find out details on what this will be like.
So, motion by Coons, second by Roll to table. Supersedes our motion to approve. So you're gonna mess up her minutes now. She's got a pending motion out there, so.
Oh, I just erased it. Is that fine?
No, the motion still exists. It just got tabled.
I can't do what I want.
No, you can't, because it's on audio.
Okay, I'll listen to it tomorrow.
You're gonna have to put it back in there. They're trying to make your life difficult. We don't normally have difficult minutes, you know. So what I would ask if we're gonna table this is that those were questions, and they have specific questions that they want answers to, because we tabled this 1 month, now we tabled another month. And so I think we need to know specific questions of what we want to know, so we can make sure we get the answers rather than, because last month it was just we want more detail, we got more detail, and now it's, well, we've got additional questions. And so please send Davis whatever questions you have, so we can reach some final resolution on this in our meeting next month. All those in favor of the motion to table, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Say I'll abstain. Motion to table is approved, 401.
Wait, what? Okay, hold on.
401.
I got you.
Okay.
Ask me in the morning.
Order approved, 0 opposed, 1 abstention.
Do I list two abstain?
What?
Do I have to list two abstain? What's your name?
You can, I don't care. I don't remember what you have to list, so. That moves us on to information items. We started this process on 508.2 and 905.1. So we could ask for some additional information. If we don't have that information, we're not going to have coaches.
Not just coaches, but right for you.
Coaches and activities, yeah. Okay. So that was not, the feedback we got is that wasn't going to happen. Or
Before graduation,
before
yeah.
graduation. So we got that feedback, and so we moved from action items to information items and community discussion we might want to have on that. So how much discussion we want to have. Discussion, we maybe talked out on this topic. We just want to wait till we get the feedback. But rather than just leave it off of the agenda, I decided to leave it on, move to an informational item so we can chat about it if there's anything more.
I just, we're waiting till after graduation, we have the time set, or I think we need to put a deadline on this meeting with all people. You can't just keep saying, can't do it then, can't do it then, no, can't do it, nah, can't do it.
It's
So
part
I
of the
think,
problem, right?
right, I think we need a deadline.
I agree
think we need
100%.
to say, if it's not, if we can't make this meeting happen by X date, then we're gonna move forward with us doing it without that. I think we need to.
Well, the plan was
cut it
for
off.
the
It can't be
June,
extended forever.
for the June board meeting.
Okay, so before the June board meeting, this will happen. Okay.
Yes,
Perfect.
that's key, yeah.
I mean, just from some of the presenters tonight, right, like, Wednesday's not in question at all, right, the Wednesday evening, so.
No, but what I would only ask as far as, you know, we have board policy, that we maybe look at board policy, and if there is a way to draft some language that's more concrete, because I think there's been some different interpretations over the decade. You know, Wednesday nights, nothing past 6. I think there was an interpretation where, well, that stops when catechism and confirmation classes are done, and they're done by the end of April or the 1st of May. So I know that's been said to me before, and that's been practiced before.
Right, I know.
So now they're running longer, and that wasn't the intent of the board policy. So, I mean, do we need an August 1st? Do we need an August 1st to June 1st?
Right, because I know basically that was the philosophy, like, I don't know, I don't know when catechism starts, but it's not the first day of school. And so we were in football practices that point in time. And so the interpretation was, once, you know, the religious things happen, then that's when that went into effect. And so let's say it didn't start till the second week of September. Then that kind of Wednesday would slide into 6:15, 6:20. And so I agree, there needs to be some clarification on those things.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we need to decide if we're doing the Wednesday evening thing for religious reasons, or are we doing it for family reasons?
Family,
Because
but I
not
think it
everybody-
coincides, well, it coincides, I think, because of,
The families can choose to send, I mean, that's why I think the churches chose that day.
yeah,
It's they can then families can choose what they want to do on that.
Right, but what I'm saying is if we're doing it specifically for religious things, then yeah, that goes this date to this date. If we're doing it for
Oh, I see what
family
you're saying.
time, then it would be all year long.
I see what you're saying.
Or at least also,
Consistency, why would we just make it the school year? It's school year to the end. of school year.
Right, and so there's lots of different versions of it that we can do. So we need to clarify, is it when these religious things happen, is it beginning of school year to end of school year? Do we give it all year long so that even in the summertime, families still have that time and can count on it all year? How are we?
The only problem that and these would be exceptions that we'd have to run into is once we get into baseball season, our conference schedules baseball, softball on Wednesdays. So our conference recognizes family night as ending when the school year ends. That would be the only hiccup to that.
If that's how we want to do it, we should just clarify.
Yeah.
Maybe in the summertime, kids
Yeah,
have a little more time because
opportunity
they're
for
not in,
family time.
yeah, because they're not in school, so maybe that's what we do, but I just think we should clarify
Absolutely.
it in the policy as well.
And based off of the survey that you did with the whole conference, it sounds as though that is in line with what everyone wants to do.
There's some
Correct.
Wednesdays out there in the conference.
Not in our,
But in other
Yeah,
districts, I
other,
guess.
other other districts.
It used to be Thursdays, before we joined the.
yeah.
Eastern Iowa Hawkeye Conference at Thursday nights, and that was one of the changes when we moved over.
So Wednesday's pretty much set. Now it's just moving on to Sunday. Get the
Well,
feedback from the coaches.
We just need to be more explicit on those sites, because we do have violations of that policy scattered throughout the year. And whether it's intentional or unintentional, this dancing deal, when they're out there at 6:15 still practicing, maybe they need an alarm on their watch. But it's changed over the years.
I wasn't here on the evening board meeting, and I know there was a discussion, but I could tell from the notes because it was tabled. What are we asking the coaches to do?
We're asking for 1 day off, 1 free day off and all.
And that's coaches, sponsors,
That's
music
music,
directors,
absolutely.
everything.
Everything.
It's everything. So the kids can have.
So ideally, Sunday's the day.
And the questions were, I think one of the questions that was up there, when we had discussion, was could vary by time of the year. So that was one of the reasons it was going on, is it might differ by year, but, Tori was here, that was the feedback she brought us, when she talks to her classmates. All they really want is 1 day per week where they know that they don't have their schedule, where they can just have a break. Because they've got stuff every day, because everyone's saying, well, we're not meeting every day, but when you're in different activities,
You're meeting
you're meeting every day, it's just not with the same people every day. So,
I'm just looking at the Hvac conference. I'm looking at what goes on a Saturday.
yeah,
Throughout the entire school year,
I agree.
and I'm like.
The-
Why are we entertaining 1 day when the only thing that's not scheduled is Sunday?
I agree. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, not, right now, the policy says we don't have to start this.
Did it again?
The policy currently says that 1 o'clock on Sunday.
Right.
You can start this
Voluntarily.
voluntarily, right? And so the question is, what we're really trying to provide is that 1 day that there are enough that can't schedule conferences, can't schedule easily, so kids actually have a day that they don't have something.
But I would also think that that should include voluntary practices too, because we
Yeah.
all know that voluntary isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so.
So it would have to be an agreement between everyone
Right.
that we can give kids a day off.
Yeah, and so here's the difficult part, which we talked about. You have a dream kid that, right, you get back at midnight, okay? If you're gonna have to meet as a team before Monday, you have to turn back around and do it Saturday.
Yeah, I think the point also comes in here, some of the things that we talked about last month were, to what extent do we allow discretion for exceptions? If you're in the middle of playoffs and you've got a basketball game on Friday night and your next game is on Monday, can you have a practice on Sunday because you've got this limited time? Past practice would have said, yes, we'd allow that. So I think one of the questions is, what are we missing? And if we write this policy, we don't want to have them come to the board and say, you didn't think about this, but, you know, so I think we want to be informed and make sure we're not missing anything as we tighten this up, because I think that's the, if there going to be exceptions, we want to make sure we're tightly controlling what they are so that we don't have proliferation of everything's an exception.
In the spirit of what we're trying to achieve here, say to our students, we don't be overtaxed.
Yep.
So what we can't do then, all of a sudden, then I have 17 things on Saturday or throughout the week. That defeats the purpose as well. It's also to scale us back and say, what's really important here? What are we really teaching our kids, and what are we providing opportunities for them to do outside school events? So this would definitely backfire, and we need to keep our eyes on this and say, okay, then I'm going to still have how many practices. Now I just have to fit it in 6 days, and now we are defeating the purpose here as well.
Well, and that's why the discussion that Dan proposed with all of the activity, everybody getting together to agree that maybe whatever sports or whatever thing doesn't have to be all year long, 5 days a week. Maybe we can give up a day of practice. Maybe we can still put out, you know.
We're from anonymously, some parents of some of our star athletes that they're done. Like, this is ridiculous. The amount of scheduling outside, inside, and the lack of being able to participate in other events because they're so.
These are the conversations. It's unfortunate, but the coaches have, the kids are not coming out of these, right?
We need to be about the
You know,
kids and not the
right,
players.
exactly. And that's why we kind of come to these agreements on how they're going to share that. And I'm only talking about athletes now because it's not work, but now we need to add, you know, we can't have fight practice. And, you know, the hard part is, and the reality is, we're growing this, right? And so we have done a lot of things at a high level. And we have high demand, which is great. At the mental health of our kids being athletes, right? But you have all these coaches who have had a success, and how they have a success, or choir or jazz, band, whatever, is by practice, right? And so they're gonna have to let go of some of this stuff, is my theory.
Or they have to be more efficient.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's be honest. I think
Right.
some of it's a matter of, you know, we do it this way. I think we all get this, well, this is what we do.
Right.
And sometimes the way I do it is not the most efficient way, it's
Sure.
just the way I'm used to. And if I was forced to make a change, then I find a better way to do it, where I get what I really need out of it, rather than just.
What's the rules on stuff? What's the rules on stuff? Exactly, you can mention this. It used to be you had hands off, right? And when it was an off-season sport, coaches could come down and have that on their coach. Is there any rules to that?
During the school, the academic school year, there's no limits, yes. You can have open whatever, as many as you want, whenever you want. You just can't coach. So there's some gray area, right? And then as soon as school gets out, it's free for all. Day school gets out.
So summer.
Right.
So if I
Just
am,
call school.
I'm the golf coach, I can have come to the greens every summer on Tuesdays, and which golf is like what, many moons of seasons away. All of a sudden we're competing with three different.
Yeah, there's issues with that policy based on how many seasons out there are, how many other things you can have. We have a lot of that stuff in that handbook. Policy, but I've seen those before.
Well, that brings you to this, and like I told Casey, first one, how we handle the code, right? You know, we're here to set directives, right? And we're starting to do that. So we know we do like district, figure out how to do that. And then we can say, right, we like that, or this is what we're researching. I think we need to say, we need to make decisions on how we're going to do this. One of the people who actually touch the kids every day and do this stuff, get together. See, this is part of the problem. I can speak from experience. These people have adopted each other. They just talk behind each other. And so if you get them all in the same room, you're like, all right, how are we gonna do this as a district? This is best for our kids. How are we gonna do this? But I think hoping that they can do it.
But I think the challenge comes if they don't, then we have to, that's your false on us.
Well, I
So,
mean, I don't think they're gonna want.
well, and they may not. Another district, I was telling Davis, I was talking to AD from another district, they were having issues with, the coaches not respecting academic concerts that were scheduled, that they were scheduling practices over academic conferences. And they, the district went in and they instituted a policy at the high level basically said, there shall be no practices or competitions scheduled opposite. So it doesn't matter if you don't have a kid that's out part. Doesn't matter, you can't practice, because they got tired of dealing with it and they were. And said, sure, we're just
looking for it, right?
Yeah.
So I think these are great positions. I trust this school district to at least set everybody down and have the opportunity to have a conversation.
But I think last night was part of the problem. We had all three baseball games scheduled on Wednesday night. In the month of May.
Right. You can see in that other thing, this is the real one. Okay? Once we decide what this is, there has to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't just be like, well, we scheduled the all three, because that was. Then it just snowballs into, and nobody's doing it to harm people, but all these little pieces watch. And so I think we just need to have an opportunity for all these people to sit down and talk. And it's super, I agree. But it's gonna be super hard to get all these busy people together, right? That's what we ask our kids to do. You know what I mean? So they can take time out of their busy schedules and get this figured out. I trust them. They'll do it right. They really want the same things. They just need to talk to each other and figure out, because once they actually sat down with the kid's schedule, all the coaches went through it. They'd be like, oh my gosh. You know what I mean? This
I
is,
don't think they,
I
every
agree.
coach sees what they
And-
do, or
and-
every director
and-
sees
right,
what
right.
they do, and every,
Right.
but they don't see what these kids are in all these other things
Correct.
too, and trying to.
And then they
be
gotta get home.
Right.
They gotta do their academics. So I think getting them together and allowing them to do stuff. Now, we cannot direct parents want to do this thing. Now, they may take the kid and take them to another opportunity to go play more sports and do that. Our opportunity is to provide families a option, right? And then, you know, and then we will ask the community members to provide opportunities during those times that families need. So that's my take.
And I think it's worth a shot to get all of the. coaches
Well, they have the
and
most
everybody
vested
together to try.
Right, how we gonna do
They all think the kids are important.
Yep.
Right.
But everyone kind of has blinders on right
Absolutely.
now, and we used to cooperate better with each other, but it's just, we've been getting farther and farther and farther away from it. And there's then creating some animosity between different types of programs, and so
For sure.
hopefully, if we can all sit down together and just have a discussion, maybe we can come up with something, and I think that would be the best way to show our kids that we all value all of the kids, and that we all also, as adults that direct a choir and coach football, even though they seem they're pretty opposite from each other, can still work it out for the betterment of the kids. So I think that's really important for us to really try hard to work this out first. And if it doesn't work, then we'll do what we gotta do. But I think showing the kids that people that have totally different interests can work together is pretty important too, and that all of us value them.
Very still specific. It would be foolish for us to have a student on or have her say something else.
Yeah.
You know, it's just that we're all people. We got to find something. You know, we'll see what our district is like.
And I think Jamie's point is important that we all need to. No one's being malicious here.
No.
Everyone wants what's best for the kids.
Absolutely.
But they're very narrowly focused on what's best for them in one specific area, and not the overarching, you know, what's best for them as they consider every aspect of it.
So it's death by 1,000. You know, that's what. and they say, yeah, great, this would be, you know, and then they don't really see what its schedule really looks like. And then we as adults don't have those schedules, but we're programmed every day. And not things you can voluntarily go through that you have. Where we go.
As you said, when you referenced it in the summer, when you were when you talk about the master schedule, so that coaches would coordinate between sports about when they're doing, so that not every day is, you know, overlapping, adjacent practice, and figure out what's the best way to do that. Is the best to try to consolidate practices so they all occur in one day, so that you've got 4 days free, or better to have them at 8 o'clock every morning if there's something in the sports book area. I don't know what the answer is, but so I think we're in good shape there. Anything else we want to chat about as we wait for our feedback?
Just confirm, we're waiting for the feedback, so by the June 16th board meeting, we should have.
So I think, so here's, I think that the policy committee is going to need to give Davis a date by which they want to have feedback from Casey, so you guys can do us revised policy.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, so you need to tell Davis.
So is our goal on Thursday, June 16th, to vote
On the first week.
on first reading of said policy, those policies, the open time policies, plus
Yep.
the 905.1
Yep.
on the leniencies and equipment.
So you're looking 14th of June, where we can be in with Davis.
Is that enough time to get ready for that's 2 days?
There gives us 2 days.
I'm sure we're gonna come back with,
Gives you 2 days to know what policy.
I think,
That gives you 1 day. Just have it
I think Wednesday's already pretty much decided for, right? That's.
Right.
No,
That
so
was the
really
language,
just-
so policy language still has to tweak. That's going to be the struggle. If it has to go to our attorney, since, you know,
That's what we're trying.
I said, if it has to, if we've got questions that come up, you know, and if there's anything in there that you guys go, we want to run this by our attorney. 'Cause sometimes when we do policies, we cross a line and Davis will say, we really should run this by our attorney just to make sure we're not breaking any rule. In this case, I don't think there's anything that's going to fall in there, but I'd just say I'd rather have more time in case something pops up. Where you say, we want to run this, we want to talk to ISB, or we want to talk to our attorney. So I would say 14th is probably too.
So can you get it by the Friday before? That allows us
Yes.
6 days. If we get feedback, and that way we can look at that feedback and we can make a recommendation that we would then bring forward. Soon as the updated language would have to be 24 hours, or 48 hours. in
24 hours,
advance of the board
posted
meeting.
online
Posted online on the 14th,
on the
right?
15th.
So that would
5:30.
be June 10th, which is in.
June 10th.
Christine's posted online before she leaves on Wednesday.
That gives Adam enough and I enough time in our busy schedules to meet and talk.
And again, specifically, when they put, when these sponsors, coaches, directors come together, what is it that you need to come out of that? What information are you looking for? What are you looking for to come out of that you want on June 10th?
My understanding that asked for us before from April was that they need to come with a consensus on a day.
Okay,
I don't see anything.
it's Sunday.
But a
It's
day.
Sunday.
And I could see that it could be seasonal. You know what I mean?
It- I thought so too, but it really can't because all fall you have volleyball tournaments all Saturday.
Boys have one day off. That would work.
Well, the music programs are more
Right. So
Yeah. I mean, you got Saturday cross country and volleyball all fall. You have wrestling all winter, and then you have track all spring.
Right.
So I think the question, so I think one of the questions is, what are the blind spots that we're not getting? So
Yeah,
what are the
right.
exceptions that might come up? So we can craft a policy that isn't going to require Casey and Zach and Mike coming to the board every month saying, you didn't think about this, and you need to make an exception to board policies for us to do this. So if there's gonna be exceptions, where do we have to define them? You know, on Wednesday nights, if we go with the flat, you can't schedule anything on Wednesday night. Does that mean we forfeit every state competition that's scheduled on Wednesday night? I don't think that's what we're proposing. You know, and then, I think the other piece that comes out of it, I think Davis and I talked about this, is we used to be better about communicating with the community when we were deviating from the Wednesday night policy. When we were scheduling an event, we would let people know that, you know, this is what's coming up. We have state soccer and girls soccer on Wednesday night, and so we'll be hosting that event. So we would reach out and we would make sure that the school community knew, and the key people in the broader community knew, so that they would not be surprised if people didn't show up at their buildings that night because they were at a soccer game. The big ones used to always be the fall football games on Wednesday nights, first conference.
Yeah, so I mean, again, what we run into, and that's a good point as far as enforcing it, putting teeth behind it. So making it very, very clear, getting those definitions out there as far as 6 PM on Wednesdays. Does 6 PM mean the whistle blows, practice is over? Or does it mean that they're off the, well, and they're driving out of the parking lot? I mean, we get both sides of it. So if you could give us a fair, consistent interpretation.
Here's the difficult part. Really, it's coaches. Those kids will stay down there and screw around and have fun and stuff for another 45 minutes. You know what I mean? And so is that what you want to prohibit? I say for sure the coaches have to be called. You know what I mean?
Well, and those are, yeah, because if.
Right, for sure. The coaches have to leave, but the kids love to just, I mean, that's doing this for 17 years.
Right.
That's where they have half the fun. You know, then it's not structured and they just screw around. And, you know, right. You know what I mean? But they're building relationships there too. So I mean, I agree.
What you don't want is you don't want practice going to 6 o'clock and then at 6:40, and then they've got clean up the field and they've got the equipment away. Practice is done, the coaches have left, but I've got 45 minutes of work I can finish and take a shower before I can leave. And so I think
nobody showers.
I've said that before. I don't know why we build showers at the schools anymore. So.
There just needs to be some clarification on what exactly does done at 6 o'clock. Does that mean done coaching, done cleaning up, coaches are gone by 6 o'clock? Does it mean they're done practicing at 6, then you can clean up and do the other? So it just needs to be very defined. If we're gonna enforce or put teeth in it, we have to be very clear on.
100%. 100%. I think like official coaches have to know how to do it.
If they're want to speak with me or whatever.
You know, it's kind of what this company is too, is just facilitate. This is hard.
Mhm, mhm.
Hard work. But I think it is.
Because again, as we talked about, this is kind of every year's. As we look around the corridor, we see a number of high school suicides. We just have to be. Everyone wants to be involved in that. The question is, if you're going to be involved in one thing, how do we facilitate that such that it can happen in a healthy way? Okay, I'm going to move us off of this topic because we all had our say, and the policy committee now has marching orders, and the administration has marching orders. Chris sent you an email telling you you're supposed to listen to podcasts we haven't. Also, for those of you who are not me, there are recorded webinars that are out there. Not a lot for this year, but you can listen to those that have passed. Some of them are very useful. But you're not allowed to listen to more than once, and so I I'm out of luck because I was looking for something new, to see if I can get some points, but no luck for me. But those are also good. And in theory, if you queue it up on your phone, you can listen to it. Most of them don't require you to watch them. You know, there might be some slides, but you can, I've listened to them before I'm driving. And so those webinars, they're generally about an hour. So feel free to listen to those as well. Those are on the board learning tab. But Chris has given us the night off from that. Talking points. Yes. Or would you like me to start with Dan?
Let's start. I'm gonna make Dan start.
Dan. Thank you to our admin team for coming tonight.
I think I just think of how many things our kids got to experience at BC. That list was just like 3 days.
Yeah.
And the amount of stuff that they, in a third of the class got to go. Just so pleased that the kids have choice. And that other thing is that parents are willing to go, because that's some work to with 45 middle school students. That's it. So just that, and just to hear our students talk about this.
Adam.
I'll do the Molar Science Olympics. It's pretty cool that for sure internet and taking down some mates one for 6 years. So they all seem pretty excited. And, it'll be good to see how that kind of evolves. You know, when it's coming back, and hopefully she can recruit another team. So.
Jamie.
I'm really excited about the industrial tech being, as a former tech student, coming into the middle school and giving our middle school kids some experiences and hands-on things that they haven't had the opportunity to do in a long time. So, and it will just hopefully expose them to some things that they wouldn't have a chance to be exposed to. And then also alleviating the pressure on the Spanish program at the high school. So I think it's a really 2-for-1 good deal both ways.
Cassie.
You stole mine. So yeah. So yeah, I really like that we're gonna get that industrial tech experience starting where it's gonna look at pathways in that CTE program for the middle school. And I just recently came from visiting a couple school districts down in Texas, and they were really utilizing online courses in a way to help make a different kind of offering for students that are accelerated or students that are not. And so hearing about Spanish, potentially even more foreign language offerings that we can offer in an offsite setting, I think it's
You guys took most of mine. Yes.
You want to talk about the survey?
No. Good one. It was nice to see you back tonight. I know that this is your only year old, as a new point exchange student. I think I've heard great things about our 2 foreign exchange students this year about their actions. So hopefully they're true. Zach gets to see them much more often than I do. But I've heard great things. I think that's always, it's great that we have foreign exchange students again this year. I think that's a great program, and I think the ability for those students to be impacted by what goes on here when they're visiting, but the bigger impact they have on our broader student population, I think is invaluable. And so I think it's nice to see that program is working well, and that Edgar gets his name on a trophy here in Loris while he's here in the States. And so I'm actually happy. I guess he's coming back for college. Is he staying, or is he coming back for college?
We go back home for a little while and then he'll be back. Most likely continue to stay where he's.
Yeah. That works out well for everyone involved. So with that, the graduation is Sunday. And please attend if you can. I realize some of you have volunteered to read names. I will be missing graduation for the first time in a long time because My sister told me I had to. But it's the right choice anyway. So I wish you guys well at graduation. Thanks, Adam, for filling in, giving the speech. 3 minutes. Make sure you say the magic sentence. I think I've never gotten the hook, but I think Zach will give you the hook if you talk too long.
There'll be a hook.
So make it if you can. Hope for good weather on Sunday, which I think is in pretty good shape. Our next board meeting is June 16th at 5:30 here. There's a couple things floating in the air, so keep your eye out for emails from Chris in case we have to do a special meeting. Also remember that when we get to the end of June, there will be another special meeting called, don't know what the date is, but there will be the meeting where we pay the last of the bills. So Matt and Natalie will tell us. It is generally like the Thursday, the last Thursday of the month. We have 2 or 3 days before the month ends because we want to pay as many things as we can out of this fiscal year so they don't get called over. So there'll be a 7:30, 7 a.m. meeting where we just pay bills to close out the year. So just be on the lookout for that. Chris will give us the heads up once Natalie and Pat say this is the date. And then we just have to find 3 of us that can show up and we set the time based on that. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Wolf.
Second.
Second by roll calls. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed. Motion carried unanimously.
7:52.